Christian Bultmann is the head of product communications for the Volkswagen brand, and he's going to show us this family of electric cars that Volkswagen's soon going to be out with. Let's start with what you're calling the ID CROZZ, which will actually show up in the US market.
Yeah, this is. So it is a vehicle that is purely electric, and it is based on a new architecture that provides for an electric front axle and electric rear axle, and in the middle you have a huge battery compartment where the battery is scalable. So the customer actually pays for a certain amount of range by choosing how many battery packs are stacked onto each other.
Okay, right? And so in the old days, you'd go from a smaller engine to a bigger engine to even a high performance engine. In the new world, we're just going to buy more batteries.
You're buying more batteries, and if you want more power, the increase is with electric engines is quite simple. Let's say you wanted to double the power capacity of an electric car. All you would have to add in terms of mass would be 20% to your engine, right? So this is something you cannot do with combustion engines. At the same time, in our architecture, the electric engine sits in parallel to the axis. So the room that is being consumed is quite compact, and that leaves a lot of space for the batteries. And at the same time, you can make very short overhangs, and the wheels can sit at the outer corners of the layout, and that gives a lot of room for passengers as well as for the electric installations.
Now, in this car being a concept, there's no B-pillar.
Exactly.
I would think that in production there would be a B-pillar.
Well, we are working on a lot of concepts to actually make this real. If you see the rear sliding door, that is a concept that is reminding maybe also your viewers a lot to the sliding doors that Volkswagen has had for many years in the Vanagon, in the Buzz, and that is also something we foresee for cars in the future like this, because the huge advantage is that the car is much better accessible, not just by doors that open to a close to 90 degrees angle, but also to rear sliding doors. Actually, in Europe, you can see some competitors which also have this for compact cars already.
Yes.
And the problem is always the bigger the car, the heavier the doors, and therefore the door hinges need to be bigger and bolder as well, which works well for electric cars because you have that extra room in the sill to enable the vehicle to hold such a massive door as the one that we saw here.
Mm-hmm. And so this is a crossover, I imagine. That's why you're calling it the ID CROZZ. And yet you've got this other one, just the ID.
Right, which is a sibling of the Golf. If the Golf is the vehicle for mass transportation nowadays and for combustion engines, the ID converts this into the electric world. And the ID has, in this case, it's a 4-seater, but we can also make this a 5-seater. And the outer length is also the same that the Golf has nowadays, but the inner room is much bigger because the firewall is moved all the way to the front, as we don't have to provide for a combustion engine compartment.
Yeah. And I don't know if you can shoot the steering wheel here, but it's retracted into the dashboard. So presumably this could be a level 4 autonomous car as well.
Exactly. So we have these retractable steering wheels in all of these cars, and at a touch of a button to the VW logo, the wheel comes toward you if you're self-driving, and otherwise you can just retract the steering wheel, and in case of the bus, you can even turn your seat around and talk to your other passengers.
And so this car, the ID, would be for Europe and Asia?
Yeah, exactly. We see nowadays quite some success with Golf in North America. Our sales have tripled in this class, so there is a class developing in the compact size market for the hatch market. We have always had the segment with the hot hatches, with the GTI, but in terms of numbers, it was incomparable to what the sedans had or what SUVs have nowadays. So our belief is the SUV will be the big seller, and we'll see how the compact car segments are developing. So far, we plan this for Europe, that's right.
And of course, our viewers are going to be familiar with the ID Buzz. It got so much international attention when you unveiled it. But I wanted to show it again, just to show the family of electric cars that Volkswagen is working on coming out with.
Sure. I mean, this is something that can only come from the brand Volkswagen. If we step around, you immediately see the doors that you know from the microbus, that you know from the Vanagon, from the Eurovan, whatever you call them. We've had them in every decade, and then in Europe we kept on making these vehicles, which you call the microbus, or we call them the transporter in Europe. Mm-hmm. That's why they have their generation name from T1 to T6, right? T6 is the current one. And if you see this now, it is a concept that carries over everything that we have in terms of conventional cars now into the electric world. For instance, you see these rails that are inside the vehicle. For the seats. You can move the furniture inch by inch throughout the vehicle and actually create the kind of living room that you want for yourself in such a roomy car, right?
So when will we see these?
This car is slated for 2022. Mm-hmm. So this one is the third model from Volkswagen. The others will be there as of 2020.
Okay, very good. Christian, thanks so much for this walk around on Volkswagen's family of electrics.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.